100 Pablo Picassos, art by Violet Lemay. My mother said to me, if you are a soldier, you will become a general. If you are a monk, you will become the Pope. Instead, I was a painter and I became Picasso. This is Pablo Picasso, one of the most important artists of all time. He was born in Malaga, a city in Spain. Picasso's first word, pis, short for lapis or pencil. The young Pablo Picasso on the opposite page is number 1. Find 99 more. Pablo Picasso worked on all kinds of art. He was always busy and made more than 50,000 works of art in his life. Picasso made this sculpture called Bull's Head, using pieces of an old bike. Picasso designed costumes for a ballet company called Ballet Russe in Paris. Picasso was always happy to learn new things. He learned to make ceramics when he was 64 years old. Picasso also wrote poems. Sometimes Picasso was sad. He painted many pictures with the color blue. This time in Picasso's life is called his blue period. This is Picasso's friend Carlos Casagemas. When Casagemas died, Picasso was really sad. During the blue period, Picasso chose to paint sad and poor people, like this old blind guitar player he found on the streets of Barcelona, Spain. During the blue period, Picasso lived in Barcelona and Paris. He stayed in rundown apartments and cheap hotels. After the dark years of the blue period, Picasso found happiness. He changed the colors in his work. Picasso was happy with the company of Fernand Oliver. They met in Paris in 1904. Fernand was not Picasso's only love. The artist had many girlfriends and wives. Picasso was always in love. This time in Picasso's life is called his rose period. The rose period is named after Picasso's use of pink tones in his paintings. Rose is the French word for pink. In 1904, Picasso moved permanently to Paris. He made many friends who helped him to become a great artist. Picasso and the painter Georges Braque worked side by side for many years. Writer Gertrude Stein was a great supporter of Picasso. Poets and writers like Jean Cocteau and Max Jacob were amongst Picasso's friends. Henri Matisse was another great artist. Matisse and Picasso became very good friends and rivals. Picasso liked to paint himself. He made many self-portraits. Picasso painted this picture of himself when he was 15 years old. This is a picture of Picasso, so you have to count this one too. A self-portrait is a picture of you created by you. Don't forget this Picasso. Another Picasso. Picasso liked African masks. These masks inspired him to paint people's faces in that style. This looks like an African mask, but it is also Picasso, so keep counting. In 1907, Picasso completed a painting in a style that nobody had ever seen before. Picasso made hundreds of sketches for this painting. It was a big painting called the Demoiselles de Virion. The women in the painting looked distorted. 2 of the women's faces remind us of the African masks. The women don't look real. That was shocking at the time. Picasso had broken all the rules. In 1907, everybody hated the painting. Today, it is considered a masterpiece. With Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, Picasso began a new art style called Cubism. This picture is called Three Musicians. In Cubism, artists show all sides of an object in a single picture. Georges Braque and Picasso worked together to create Cubist art. Cubism made Picasso really famous. Artists use Cubism in all kinds of mediums, from painting to sculpture. Picasso loved animals, particularly dogs. He had many pets in his life, from a white mouse to a goat named Esmeralda. Picasso's favorite dog was a Dachshund named Lump. He painted this plate for Lump. Cat. Jan, Esmeralda, Frika. From the time he was a kid, Pablo Picasso had always liked bullfights. He also made many paintings of imaginary animals like centaurs, fawns, and even minotaur. The minotaur is an imaginary beast that is half man and half bull. Some people think that Picasso saw himself as a minotaur. In 1949, Picasso painted a beast using light. He also made sculptures of these beasts. In 1936, war broke out in Spain. 1 year later, the town of Guernica was bombed. Picasso was living in Paris and he was very upset. He painted his most famous painting, Guernica. Many people were killed in the bombing. Picasso showed this horror in his painting. Guernica is a huge painting. It is bigger than a professional soccer goal. Picasso used gray tones to show the sorrow of war. War didn't stop in Guernica. World War II started in 1939. Picasso left Paris for the south of France. In 1945, the war finally ended. After the war, Picasso made a simple drawing of a dove. The drawing became a symbol of peace all over the world. When Picasso was 9 years old, he made many drawings of birds. Pablo Picasso had 4 children. His daughter, Paloma, was born in 1949. Paloma means dove in Spanish. His other children were named Paulo, Maya, and Claude. After the war, Picasso moved again to the south of France, where he worked in sculpture and ceramics. Picasso worked in a cluttered studio. He said that the messy room inspired him. Picasso took an old masterpiece called Las Meninas by the painter Diego Velázquez and made it his own. Can you see Lump in the painting? Picasso lived until he was 91 years old and he never stopped working. Today you can see Picasso's art in museums all over the world. He is a megastar of the art world. Picasso was very curious about the world. He saw things differently and showed us the world in a special way. Picasso's art broke many rules. He loved trying new ways to make art. We saw 100 Pablo Picassos in this book. Did you find them all? Every child is an artist. It is a challenge to remain an artist when you grow up. Pablo Picasso.